Welcome to another episode of Seattle House Mafia's Industry Interview. I'm Phil, your host. Today we're doing something a little bit different. We have not one, but two very special guests, JoshQuest and AJ Sorbello. How are you guys?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for being here. So just a little background, some bullets here for your intro. Josh, you've been a DJ since 93. You had your first release on vinyl in 96 on Relapse Records with our good friend John Lee.
Yeah.
Over 50 releases on Beatport from labels like Dear Dear, Capitol Heaven, Principal Entertainment, and many more. AJ, you've been DJing since 97, same year as me. AJ's been producing music for more than 20 years. His first release was in 2001. Today he works with the likes of Hawk, a.k.a. Gavin Hardkiss, Uniting Souls Music, Viva Recordings, and many other artists around the world. AJ is also owner of both Build It Records and No Secrets Records, right?
That's right.
And then you two, back in 2010, had collaborated as HeatSeekers.
Yep.
And put out, okay. So, and now you're full circle back around 2024. You're now a duo called Hotkeys, correct?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, I got that all right. So to date, I just want to make sure I cover this. 6 completed songs, 2 already released. I've seen them on Beatport, right? And another coming out in the summer compilation.
Yes, on Build It Records.
Love it.
Yep.
Well, guys, thank you for coming through. I know that was a lot, but we have, it's funny. So first thing, Josh, you have been mentioned, I think Sherman, John Lee, maybe Terry Jacinto. All those guys have said, I saw Josh play. It looks so cool that I want to be a DJ. From the early days, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So AJ, I don't remember what year, but we were both booked at Club NAF. Remember when that party Club NAF happened? You remember playing that?
Yeah.
So we both played outside. I think I played right before you, and I knew the promoter, and I actually worked with him. Total, like, he's a good guy, but total degenerate. You know, we were so bad at our real job. And he said, just bring your needles, your headphones, right? So I think my set was like a 1 or 2 a.m. and you were right after me. And this was the outdoor space at NAF. And after I got done, I started unscrewing my needles. And you looked at me and you're like, you're taking the needles? I'm like, yeah, bro, they're my needles. And you're like,
my God.
I didn't bring needles.
Yes. Yes.
I didn't bring needles. And so I'm like, well, dude, I'll wait. You'd use my needles.
I do remember this.
There was a time when everybody went from having needles at the spot to bringing their own needles.
Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, this is like 20 plus years ago.
I remember this.
So I go, well, dude, I'll hang out, whatever. And at the time, like, I was super pedantic about putting new needles on for gigs because I was a vinyl guy, right? And so I'm like, I give you my needles, but I'm also a little bit anal about it. And so AJ starts playing. He does a killer mix. I'm like, okay, this kid knows what's up. But then he starts scratching.
Oh shit!
And I'm like, I'm like, this motherfucker. He's scratching on my brand new, and these are my dance music needles. These aren't my hip hop open format needles, right?
I know. You know what's messed up is I had the same needles. I was like, oh, I scratched on these. They're good still. So let's go.
So you start scratching, right? And I'm like, this motherfucker's scratching on my new needles. But then I'm like, man, I need to learn to fucking scratch because look at the crowd. Like they're totally vibing. So that was like the first time I met you. It was super funny. And then I just hung out for your set, took the needles, and parted ways.
Yeah. I was so appreciative though. I was like, dude, oh my God, don't take the needles.
Was that like 20? That was like 20 plus years ago?
It was. Like, yeah.
And then, so Josh, you're going to love this one. So I used to see you out, and I used to go to like the VFW hall parties that you and your crew would throw. Like, okay. But when I really like the time I sort of like saw you. That's right.
Habit, yeah.
So when I saw you up close, you remember that Scott Sloan dude who had a house in the Arboretum that was getting remodeled? So it was this huge mansion in the Arboretum, right? I'll tell you, because this is what I'm talking about, my sort of Rain Man memory.
Yes. Had the pool inside.
Yeah. So, and he threw, like, during one summer, he threw massive parties because everything was getting remodeled. So I remember at this party, and it, like, there was people from all over Seattle, all over Kirkland, like we caravan to that, like so many cars. I don't know how we pulled it off, but it was a wild, like, proper house party. And then came downstairs, and you rolled in with your crew, and you you guys, I mean, we were all a little like Color Me Bad back then, right? But you guys had like jackets with like spray paint on the back and shit, like jean jackets, kind of.
I made all those.
I know. So we're listening to like, and there was no DJ, so we're listening to like, I think it was like EPMD or something, like some 90s era hip hop, right? You stop the music, and I think it was a tape, but it might have been a CD. I don't remember this. And you put on KLF 3 a.m. Eternal. I never heard it before, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then after that, I think you played Movement Jump. And I was like, what is this?
Early electronic music.
Yes,
basically.
dude. I was like, what is this music? This is like, I don't know. Because I was like, look at these fucking guys. Well, they're pretty cool, but I'm gonna bag on them, you know? But then you started playing this dope stuff that I'd never heard before. And that was really like, for me, almost an intro into starting to explore that early dance music stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if you remember that, but it was a ridiculous party. It was like, but you were sandwiched somewhere in the middle, you and your crew of like kind of.
I totally remember that house.
Yep.
Yeah,
yep.
I had the indoor pool. You could smell the chlorine in the house.
Totally.
But it was like ridiculous.
It was ridiculous.
You could walk through it forever.
Yeah, like bedrooms.
Like, why does it smell like chlorine in the house? And
there's like this massive
a pool overlooking the cliff. And
yeah, it was a crazy place. So those are my two like really like my origin stories on when I actually like got kind of face to face with you guys, which was pretty funny. So I'm glad you guys remember because you know
we used to do that. We would go to parties and pull out the cassettes.
That was it.
Or CDs if we have CDs. It was either or pre DJ.
But there was no like hesitation. You just like walked up, turned it off, put your tape in, turned it on, and it was KLF. Yeah. You know, that was pretty sick.
Yeah,
so
I think I was wanting to be a DJ before I realized I was a DJ.
Right. Because that must have been 92, 91, right? Like somewhere around there, I think.
Right before it, probably. Yeah. And around that time, I remember that same crew, we all went to the first rave together, and from there it was like, this is the best thing in the world.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you guys, because we all sort of, like, you're a little bit younger, just a few years, I think, than me, and I think we're similar in age, but, like, what got you guys into the rave scene in Seattle? What was that?
I mean, I'm from Sacramento. I started really just getting into electronic music around like 1994, 95. In Sacramento, yeah. And then my buddy had a CD player, a mixer from Radio Shack, and this record player that you can open from the front. It's like this wooden box type thing.
Okay.
You know, it was like really old school one. So my parents, they had a record distribution company, and they had hundreds and thousands of records. So I'd like to start grabbing a bunch of records and kind of like playing around with it, mixing it with Orbital and kind of going back and forth. Oh, this sounds awesome. And it totally sounded like shit.
Sure.
but that kind of got me into like meeting other people that are doing something similar, but more on a professional level. And then I started going to these parties, these raves in Sacramento, and then moved to the East Coast, did it over there, moved back to the West Coast in '99. And that kind of just fell into it. That was like the perfect timing, at the right age, right time.
So you were doing the rave thing in Sacramento, or then you came, and then you just came up to Seattle and found the scene?
I went from Sacramento to Rhode Island, and then here in Seattle in '99.
Got it. Okay. And then how about you? When did you? Because you were a little bit early. Because you like were giving out flyers. I think when I went to my first rave, you handed me a flyer for the next rave.
Yeah, me and my buddies kind of like right away tried to link up with we went to our first rave, which I think was Joker's Juice is what it was called.
Okay.
It was in a space down in South Lake Union. The building's gone now. Obviously they built it there's big towers there now, but it's kind of like right there where was it American Music was?
Yes.
Guitar Center, I mean.
Guitar Center, yeah.
It was right in that same, like, one building over from there.
Yep.
And that was my first rave. I went there with all the buddies, and we all fell in love with it. And then we got flyers for the next one. And then we went to the next party and met the promoters. And from there, we're like, hey, we could get lots of people to come to this. Let us all in free.
Got it.
We'll pass out flyers for you. And that was the introduction to promoting.
Yeah.
And so that night, we were passing out flyers for the next party at that party as a way to kind of get in.
Okay.
And then I think within another rave or two, I was like, I want a DJ. And we had been doing those VFW. We had already been throwing parties.
Yeah, you were throwing those VFW.
Yeah, we were throwing parties before raves were even happening. Where we had a buddy that would DJ, and he would play, like you said, it was all like
hip hop and
Cube 93 music.
Yep.
And one night we had cassette tapes, and we were playing cassettes when the DJ wasn't there yet, and we were going back and forth with 2 cassette players. And we just ready, stop, go.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like the first time we were like, okay, we can get people dancing.
Yeah.
It was the music would literally stop. It was at one of the VFW halls in North Seattle, I think.
I remember going to a couple of those parties, those VFW parties.
And then that's when I was like, I got to get some turntables, and got my hands on some turntables pretty quick, and bought a couple records, and right away I had this buddy Morgan that was like, that's what happened. He had turntables, and I was like, let's get a place together. And I was like, that's how I kind of got my foot in the doors. I remember using Morgan's turntables, and he had vinyl too. He had some vinyl. So I would get like a couple records, and I'd mix his stuff with my stuff, and pretty quick I thought I was a DJ, but I was crashing everything when I would play out every mix for a while.
And
all of a sudden it clicked.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, I can mix.
I always tell people I get kind of mad because I had this kid come over who's never played on turntables before, and he like figured out mixing in like 10 minutes because he produces, and it took me like 3 months to get like a clean first mix. Honest to God, like it was such a pain in the ass.
For sure.
But once it clicked, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The excitement.
You're
just like, finally.
You're like, did you hear that? And you're looking around, nobody's there. And
for me, I was like playing out within weeks of calling myself a DJ. So I was out in front of people opening parties, crashing mix after mix. Actually, I got lucky one night. We went to an after hours party in the basement of this house in the U District, and Donald Glod showed up coming from the underground, and we were DJing in the basement, and he kind of gave me some lessons.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah, and he was like, you get it on the beat, and like showed me a couple of little things, and that was like the first time I started getting it was when he kind of gave me those little tips, and that I wasn't getting enough practice in. That was the problem.
Yeah.
Is I didn't have my own turntables.
Yeah,
to really get in the zone.
And then AJ, when did you actually go from being a raver to starting to DJ?
Well, I was both. Like I would
like right out of the gate with the tape.
I was right out the gate partying all the time, throughout school, and kind of like, actually it was funny when I moved to Washington. I lived in Port Orchard at the time, and I'm partying every weekend, DJing house parties and raves here and there, that wherever they could pop up at. And I was going to school at Kitsap, South Kitsap, and the principal comes over and he's like, hey, have you thought about going to a alternative school since you're always showing up to school 2 hours late? I mean, I know you're working in Seattle when you're DJing, but like, you could actually go to school and get your diploma if you go to this alternative school.
Interesting.
And I was like, no, I want to be able to walk, I don't know if I really want to do that. I feel kind of weird and awkward. And he's like, no, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you're only going to school twice a week and you can do your music. And I was like, you're cool. Let's do it. And then I ended up going, got my diploma. And but I was just DJing. I got a DJ in a box.
Okay.
Finally, with direct drive, Gemini XLs, 2s.
Yep.
And I was, even then, like, I was still having a hard time matching them, because if you touch the plate, it just goes stop.
Right.
So you'd have to get the wax paper, put it underneath the slip mat, so it would just be more slippery, and then you have to touch the outside of the rim of the record, and then crank it in the middle.
Plastic sleeves from the record would work too if you cut them out.
If you cut the circle around,
for sure. So I finally got it, and this guy in Bremerton, he was in the Navy, and one of my friends knew him. He came over. He was actually DJing around the world, and he told me about like what it is. When you're DJing a mix, you're telling a story from start to finish. Like, and it really resonated with me ever since the last 25 years. It's always been a storytelling experience, start to finish, and how you progress into the next track. So he was playing trance, and that kind of like influenced a lot of my sound too. So, but even though it was, playing house and playing all the other genres, with all my peers and friends, it's really fun too. But on the way up here, we're like, AJ's closet trance. because no one knows that he likes trance.
You should just be like saying no and just come out as the
yeah,
trance
I'm
guy.
coming out
If
now.
you leave him alone in the studio and he's a little tiny bit emotional, it comes out. In
Yeah,
the song.
hey, your trance
Deep
is
and
showing, bro.
melodic.
Yeah, turn down your trance a little bit. But anyway, so that's kind of how I got the whole, DJ in a box, learning from how to beat match.
Got it.
That's
And then you
awesome.
started. Did you also hook up with promoters to start getting pulled into parties?
Yeah. So locally, my buddy Joel and Bruce over at Illusion Records in Bremerton, they were doing parties with Shane Quaid and out in like on the Kitsap side.
Right.
And then here in Seattle, it was Fat Bastard, my buddy DJ Echo. I was a part of Jerry's masquerade events, Ground Zero events is what the name of the production crew was. My buddy Christian from Pi Productions. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on, and we were all just kind of just partying together and DJing. It was like a mixture, So
That's. And then you guys ended up with the HeatSeeker thing. So how did you guys end up connecting? Was it connecting through the rave scene, or was it connecting? How did you guys connect?
Club scene.
Club scene.
Yep.
Okay, because you both had, if I remember right, residencies at Sea Sound, residencies at Last Supper. You also played Trinity. Did you have any other? Well, you played out.
I played
a lot.
everywhere.
You played
I just
everywhere.
didn't have necessarily a residency
Right, totally.
going, but I
Yep.
played just pretty much everywhere. I played all over the continent, from
Right.
everywhere, from the top of Canada down into Mexico a bunch of times, and I've traveled around a bit.
Yeah, I remember looking, I think, stalking your Facebook years ago, and then you're like in Mexico or something.
Yeah, I had a nice little relationship going with some clubs down in Mexico for a while before they had a hurricane, and then the hurricane destroyed it. And so the club owners ended up, all the clubs were destroyed from the hurricane. They revamped that whole town, Cabo.
Okay.
But
when was that? Was that like?
That's at least 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Or so.
I remember seeing pictures somewhere on social media.
We threw a big show down there and collaborated with the Nikki Beach and a couple of the clubs and brought some DJs there, and Jody Wisternoff, DJ Dan.
Wow, got it. Okay.
Miss Nine. There was a bunch of great DJs. It had one of the most fun times of my entire life. I remember being in the hotel. The hotel surrounds the pool, so you got all the hotel rooms with the decks looking down on the pool.
Right.
And we had like 100 of our best friends there, and our buddies are DJing at the pool, and we're going running from room to room, and just like, it was like you could hear the music everywhere in the hotel because Nikki Beach is at one of the coolest hotels there, you know. And one of the funnest times ever.
That's amazing. Yeah.
All the homies. You missed out on that one. You didn't.
No, we're not going to go there.
Oh,
So
were you invited and you didn't go?
Oh, no.
Oh,
We're going to cut this part out. Bro, let's, reel it back.
That was when the AJ,
we're gonna,
I think we're not.
Yeah.
For a while.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys weren't getting along?
No. Yeah, we were, that was like the end of our HeatSeekers.
We ended up having
interesting.
A little bit of a falling out.
Yeah.
Miscommunication.
Well, can we talk? Okay, so let's talk about HeatSeekers for a second. So you guys met in the clubs.
Yeah, so let's go back to how we met, because I don't remember. I don't have a Rain Man memory like Phil does.
Yeah.
So
I don't remember how we met either.
I don't know. Oh, really?
But I knew right away, right away we had a lot in common.
Yeah.
And I think somebody introduced me to him and was like, my buddy AJ. And I was like, oh, I'd heard of him,
Yeah.
And I was promoting.
Was it Strikovic?
At Sea Sound, was promoting Last Supper Club.
Jason, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
Might have been Jason.
It could have been.
Somebody introduced us, and then we were DJing together and playing similar music that was diverting from the norm at
Right.
that time. Both of us were really into electro, and it was kind of new.
Okay.
So, and because we were DJing that music when everyone else was still kind of playing deep house and house music,
Right.
we sort of like, well, let's, both of us were producers, so we're like, we should try and make some electro music, and that's how that started.
Interesting.
And so the HeatSeekers project was all very electro.
Yeah, I was listening to some of it recently. It's fun, man. 2012, right? Isn't
Looking back,
yeah.
it's like, oh shit.
I see where you guys were going with it, though. You know what I mean? And at that time, like you said, it was pushing it a little bit for what was happening.
Yeah, it was definitely diverting from the norm.
Yeah.
We were trying to do something that was a little more edgy.
Yeah.
And And then we had some good stuff in there, but the sound changed. Kind of in the middle of us making that type of music, the sound started to kind of evolve a little bit more, and it still kept on evolving.
Yeah.
And then finally it sort of like just settled on this plane where everything's kind of back to, you got house music that's more edgy and house music that's more trancey and house music that's more deep.
Yeah, we couldn't really figure out that we couldn't have our sound per se. It was like a bunch of other ideas kind of, into one.
Yeah.
Whereas like today we're a little bit more mature about it,
Now we have a sound that we're going for, as before we were trying to find our sound.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you not want to talk about the drama, your
We don't
break?
talk about the drama.
No, yeah, we can.
But there was like a little bit of a falling out. I think what's important about it, so you don't have to give details, but there was a falling out. But here we are, 2024. You guys are back and doing your shit again.
Yeah, we never stopped being friends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We just stopped making.
Oh,
music
you know what it
together.
was? When we had a show down in San Francisco. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't need to get into it.
Yeah. I almost
We
went
probably
there.
still don't agree.
Oh,
We probably
no,
still don't
I-
agree.
So
We never
I don't,
really.
I don't want you guys to break up
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
I don't want to do this on camera.
We never resolved it, but we both moved on from it.
That's cool.
Which allowed us to just kind of move forward. We actually haven't even talked about it since it happened.
Yeah, I didn't even remember until now. Now I remember.
And we
now
never
I'm-
really agreed on either part. we just
Well,
come to agree.
Dude, sometimes
agree to
that
disagree.
happens. Yeah, just let it go,
Agree to
right?
disagree, right?
But how did that conversation go for you guys? Like, you guys were staying friends, and then did somebody come to somebody else and say, "Let's do some fucking music together again"?
What happened? How did we?
COVID.
Yeah,
hit,
same.
and we were all stuck in our house.
Yep.
And we started gaming a bunch together.
Oh yeah, let's try it.
Because we're stuck in the house. We had our headphones on. We'd be playing games.
We were
and
talking all the time.
it was like, this is like when you couldn't leave the house, basically.
Yeah.
Everyone was getting paid to stay home.
It was weird.
And then we started talking about music again. And then he got his studio built, a really nice studio. And our friendship remained. So we would talk to each other pretty regularly. We have a lot in common outside of just the music. So we'd be talking about the stuff that we have in common, go catch movies and stuff.
Yeah.
And then didn't we go to see a show? It just was more or less when we decided to work together, we took a little bit different approach too, where we kind of like, let's experiment with music.
Yeah.
And find out what comes from the soup kitchen. Get in there and throw the spices in there and just see what the flavors come
Yeah,
out
what
of it.
sticks?
Yeah.
Well, we weren't like giving ourselves any sort of constraints, and we're
Yeah.
like, if we didn't love it, we would leave the studio, come back, and if we sat down and didn't love it, it was just a sketch. We'd start something new.
Yeah.
Sketches, and taking a approach more like I had taken from my painting, where
Yeah.
I don't get so invested in every song to where you overwork them and you're wasting time trying to polish something that is never
Get
going
the
to.
snare just fucking
Or
right.
it's-
and,
yeah,
you know,
you just end
whatever.
up changing the entire
Yeah.
track. When you could have had 2 tracks, or you could have just moved on to something
Right.
fresh until you found that right sound. And that, I think, kind of entering the studio for me, having that approach allowed a little bit more flexibility in there, and that flexibility has allowed our sound to sort of find its like just
Well, and I
kind
think
of come to surface.
You also hit on the maturity thing, and then so there's 2 things, and I want to back up just a little bit because you mentioned painting, right? So here was my experience with your painting, just from an outsider. DJ Josh Quest quit DJing. All of a sudden, he's this fucking dope painter. Like that's what it felt like. I was like, I had no idea this. And I think I'm like in the majority. Like I think a lot of people who weren't close to you knew you even painted. I didn't. I mean, And
Well, I kind of really didn't. I did graffiti and did art before I was a DJ, and then when I DJ'd, I did graphic work. So I messed around with artwork, and a lot of the flyers and things that I was involved in, I got involved in the artwork as well.
Okay.
So like the making the flyers and the posters and the branding and all that stuff. And so I was able to use some creative, artistic creativity to do the artwork for all the events and all the music and the mix CDs and stuff like that. But I wasn't actually physically painting physical art like this.
Right.
Until I didn't quit DJing. I was doing the DJing and the art at the
Right.
same time. But,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, to be fair, he wasn't always a painter, but he was building. I went to his condo, and a long time ago, and he was building shit. Like
big boom boxes.
He built this big boom box. I was like, damn. Where'd you buy this? He's like, I built this.
I was building stuff. I was like, being creative, you know.
Yeah, it's like
That actually led to the painting. Was building the boom boxes. That's how I started kind of doing the painting.
these were like functional boom boxes, or just visually like
Visually.
lit up.
Yeah,
flash,
it was
lights,
pretty-
beats,
He was.
stuff.
So, but in a way, okay,
It
so
was cool.
you didn't necessarily stop DJing, but it was a little bit, and there was also COVID in there and all this other stuff, but a little bit of a hiatus. Like you weren't DJing so aggressively necessarily in the city.
I would say when I was painting, I wasn't creating music as much.
Okay, got it.
So my artistic efforts went into something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the DJing remained because I was making a living DJing
Okay,
until COVID.
right.
Up until COVID, that's how I made a living, was DJ.
Yeah.
And then the art on top
And
of that.
then the art on top
I'd
of that.
sell art and I would DJ.
Wow.
And I'd do corporate events and parties, and I had residencies at restaurants and clubs and hotels, and
Gotcha.
I had for 5 years I was on the rooftop every summer at Frolic, which was epic.
Well, see, in fairness, like I had taken a hiatus, right? So I kind of fell out of everything. So I wasn't even paying attention to anything that was
Yeah.
going on besides maybe what I'd see in social media sometimes,
Yep.
And then you were DJing the whole time too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, this kind of reminds me. Josh and I were DJing at like Motif before COVID
Got
for a while, and prior to that as well. So, what do you mean by before? Like
I'm
after we broke up our
No,
duo?
that's-
After we broke
split
up?
after the break. No, I was thinking. So I think we were all like DJing in rotation somewhere at clubs and raves and
Oh,
doing
yeah.
stuff like
Okay.
90s, early 2000s. Then I dipped out like 2014 or something like that. 2014, 2015. I put like whatever I was playing more like open format gigs. I was like, this is so much work. I'm not even
Yeah.
having fun anymore.
Yeah.
And so I kind of dipped out of the whole scene, everything. And you guys were still active or somewhat active. But were you more active DJing or producing at that time?
I mean, both.
Yeah, okay.
Because I've gone through so many different aliases.
Right.
That I mentioned before. It's like, okay, I mean, I could just go on and on about that, but let's say every 3 years it's something new.
Shifting it up.
Meet new friends, different crowds and different sounds just kind of moving,
And
but always doing
the
it.
music's changing too. If you're not doing just standard house music,
Right.
the outside realms of that have been shifting
Yeah.
all over the place, from like trip hop, down tempo to
Yep.
deep house to electro to tech house to trance to
Yeah.
high energy.
Trap, dubstep,
Yeah,
other
yeah,
other
dubstep and trap. We
Speed
like that stuff
Garage.
too.
Yeah.
And like I was doing Speed Garage, original Sound Boys with DJ Sir Cuts.
Okay.
We've played Whistler, Vegas, Seattle, and like we did our thing then, and trill, trap music with I Flirt, and like it just, like I said, it just there's just so much of it.
Yeah. Well, what I'm hearing, and just because, again, I probably wasn't paying attention, but you guys have always had a foot in it, right? Even from the beginning, it sounds like from the rave scene, I just probably wasn't watching and paying attention.
Yeah.
But but everybody, it does seem like everybody's kind of evolved in what they were doing. Now you guys are fully back producing, making tracks. It sounds like it's mature and organized, and there's like a vision, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So cool. So, and what was it that this time around, less constraints but there's obviously a sound that you guys have, because I was listening to I haven't heard anything unreleased, but I've heard the 2 tracks that you guys released, which are dope and melodic and a little bit tribal. And I mean, I'm subjectively, from my experience listening to it, but is there like a vision? Did you guys sit down and say, here's what I want this, this crew to represent, or the hotkeys to sort of represent this sort of sound or this spectrum of sounds?
Well, I think it's more like we're more it's easier for us to be able to write licks and understand the licks, and we say, yes, we like that lick. Before it was kind of like, we're slapping
the
it.
music. Actually, we started with the music, made like one song that we probably won't release, even though it's pretty good, but it doesn't really sound like the way it sounded. But we kind of like started, and we were like, let the music. We did one song, then we did another,
Yeah.
and then
And
we
then
did
it
another,
evolved.
and then we got to a point where like the music had its sound, and then we
Yeah.
kind of the name found its way in, and so it's like we're sort of like letting the music lead the path for us instead of
So
like
cool.
Yeah.
the branding. Let's put a band together. We got a cool name, you know.
Yeah.
Let's get some photos done. We don't even have a song yet. We can get some photos though. So we have, you know, I got a logo. Check it out.
You're
you
not
know?
doing it the way the kids do it these days, right?
They start
get
with
that-
everything there,
Yeah.
but then they get the music. You
Then
know,
they-
but this time we're building the music, the catalog.
Yeah.
So we're ahead. We're ahead. We have more songs than we have, you know, released. Instead of being like, okay, we got 2 released, we got to make more. You know,
Right.
We actually have music
Yeah.
that we're going to be ahead of, so we can be releasing and stay you know,
Systematically.
And
right.
you guys can do everything in house because it's producing, mixing, mastering, all that. You have a studio for
Exactly.
that.
Yeah.
That's dope.
got
Yeah,
a real nice studio up at his place.
yeah. And when did you get all that rolled out? The studio, like, have you always had it, or did
Yeah.
you like? Okay,
Yeah, I've always had a studio.
but it's
where-
just evolved, probably.
Yeah, it's evolved, exactly. I mean, I also do film work. You know, I've worked in movies and commercials and things of that nature, like working down from LA to New York and seeing what's in these studios. I'm like,
okay.
well, why should I spend the money to come down here if I could just do it here in Seattle? Bring that, boom. I can
Totally.
use that one. All right, definitely can use that in my studio.
Got it.
And then just rebuilt the studio from LA here in
That's
at my
also
place.
definitely a motivator for me too. When we talked about making music again, going to his studio is like, it's like, you know, going to. It doesn't get much better than that.
I've seen a few pictures, I think, but yeah, it looks pretty.
You know, what I mean, it's
dialed,
not too
dude.
far from my place.
Yeah.
You know, I'm working with the buddy.
Yeah,
You know, it's motive. I get to hang out too. It's like, you know, I'm not just going to the studio. I'm going to see AJ too. You know, and like,
yeah.
you know, catch up with what did you do all week. You know, and like we have a good rapport with each other as homies. So it makes it the studio.
Do you
No.
guys put an effort around like cadence? You know, kind of going and like we meet Mondays and Wednesdays and
Every
alternate.
Tuesday.
Yes.
you know?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
You can tell. I can feel that ethic, right? That's the thing, right? And I think a lot of people, you know, especially with music and DJing, it's pretty haphazard sometimes about, yeah, let's get together and make a track, or it either never happens or it happens once, and then you get this 1/3 of a track that's barely there, and then you never, you know, I've
Yeah,
been
the
guilty. of
actual weekly consistency
Yeah, that's
has
awesome.
actually helped this come afloat, you know?
Yep.
Because you miss a couple weeks and then you forget, what did we do? Oh, did we change that on purpose? You know, like we've even 1 week later, we're like, was that supposed to be like that? We're like, I think it was. It sounds good. I think we did that last week, you know?
Yeah, because
Yeah, go on. Sorry.
because Josh doesn't. Whenever I'm working, I'm like, hey, Josh, listen to this. Tell me, write some notes, because if he's not here at the studio when I'm in there listening or doing a master and I hear something, I'll just pass it back over to Josh and say, hey, write down everything that we need to do. When you come back, then we'll make the adjustments. I don't want to make the adjustments without him there.
Yeah, I'll play
So
the
it's-
music in the house and clean my house.
Yeah.
And do, you know, like listen to it in the background with a listener's perspective.
Right.
And
Yep.
find things wrong and pull up my phone and put it in real quick, you know, and make a list and then show up and I'll just go down the list. And then it's like the track is always evolving at
Yeah.
a rapid rate.
But you guys seem like you have a pretty good communication around that piece, right? Like,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
there's no hurt feelings if you're like, I didn't like that
No.
breakdown or whatever.
No, we figured out how to resolve that.
Yeah, we literally have we know that there's a down we have to have the 50-50 mark. You know, if I'm over and we're very similar actually with our ear. It's really interesting.
We
So
agree most of the time.
yeah.
And when we don't agree, I'm usually right.
And besides the trance, you have a pretty similar taste in music. Besides his like secret.
Besides his trance deviation, we have everything else in common. No, yeah, it's and another thing too I've noticed too is when he's in control usually, because it's set up for him, you know.
Right.
And, so he's got the mouse. We tried the 2 mouse thing and it doesn't work because the mouse is flying all over.
Can you
I was gonna
imagine?
ask, no,
It's like,
I-
give me
tried
that
that.
damn thing.
We tried that. So now we got a stick so we can point at the monitors
Yeah.
if we're trying to get really, you know, you
Right.
go that thing right there, move that to the left, you know.
Got it.
But we've got it down to where like certain words you know, he understand. Like I could say something, and within a second, he just does it. You know, it's like,
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
we're already on the same page every single step of the way.
oh yeah, I heard that too. Yeah,
Yep,
I heard
yep,
that. All,
exactly.
You know,
I was like, all right, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's funny. I was watching. I went to a session that John Lee was doing with. I don't remember who it was. It was Simon Hauser, and it was kind of the same thing. Those guys, you know, because they do the Lee Hauser stuff. But it was like almost like they were finishing each other's sentences, and John was already like clipping things and changing things. And it sounds like you guys have.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like it was so efficient to watch. It seems like the way to go, and I would imagine. I mean, I'm sure there's some freedom just doing it on your own, but it also is a lot more fun doing it with a buddy, right? When you're,
Oh,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Is there like a larger goal or a mission for you guys when it comes to the production stuff, the hotkey stuff, or is you just are going with it right now, somewhere in between?
We have some expectations.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we kind of, you know, we were just talking about this the other day. We're like, you know, we're going to do something with this and do it. If something happens, we're just going to keep pushing for that next bar. You know, you just keep moving up the bar
Yep.
to doing shows, doing album, or doing getting out there, performing. Should we do, you know, break our tracks into stems and like do it live and do it this way? Do something a little bit different.
As long as we stay consistent every week too, it's like
Yeah.
everything just keeps on getting bigger.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and like one week we might show up to the studio and we'll work on the artwork for you know, like the new release or whatever instead that day.
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It won't even be about the music, but we're still working.
And you're
Yeah.
still showing up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think people miss that too. Like, you know, having that time and just showing up, even if it's not necessarily like the work that or defining what that work is that night or that day or whatever, but just getting in there and doing like good shit comes out of it, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's cool that you guys are doing that. I'm fascinated because the one thing I've never I've done a little bit of like, you know, passenger seat production, but that's like the extent of it, right? And nothing ever serious, and it just at some point, you know, it kind of calls to me every now and again, and I need a good driver. So I don't,
Yeah.
yeah,
So Josh mentioned we have this long stick.
yeah.
We've used it since we were HeatSeekers, actually.
Same
Back at
stick.
my
Same
old, it's the
stick.
same
Yeah.
stick. Remember this?
Nobody's
Yeah.
ever hit anybody
When he had the
with-
studio then, the TV was almost as far as the wall is
Yeah.
there. So he had a TV as the monitor.
Oh,
Yeah.
Now he's got two
Yeah.
big monitors. They're almost could touch them. You could almost point, you know, they're
right.
far enough away that they're not, you can't touch them, but they're, you know, the stick you're
I
like,
did have to bring it out today, though.
you pull out the stick.
Yeah, I was like, because we were both looking at it, like, no, it's right here. Yeah, the pen wasn't quite long enough to get to it. So.
Yeah.
Are you guys finding is there almost like a pattern of how long it's taking you to make a track now, or is it all over the board?
It's pretty
It's
consistent
pretty
about how long it
consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's we're just coming up with stuff like this. You know, we're just
Yeah.
we find we gravitate towards a certain lick,
Right.
and then we just go bam. Okay, we need this, boom, build out, boom, 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 arrangement,
Yeah.
boom,
And the
mix.
sketching thing that we've been doing, we're coming in and just kind of moving quick, keeping the creativity flowing. If we get
Yes.
stuck on something, we move on. You know, like not getting stuck on something for
Yep.
an entire day.
Because there's
Yeah.
more stuff we need to add. So we're just like, okay, well, we know we need to add this. So let's just go over to that and come back to
We're
that.
not getting the bass line
you know,
right. Let's
so
move
that way
on to
we're
the drums again. You
Yeah.
know, like,
And you guys are finishing stuff, which from talking to different people who produce, like that's one of the biggest challenges is actually finishing a track and shipping it, right? I don't know if that's the case with you guys, but like you guys are finishing, so that's
Yeah.
great. I've talked to so many people that produce that have like 100 tracks that aren't quite finished that they just.
I mean, that's still there too.
Yeah.
You know, I got me personally, I got
Yeah.
a lot of tracks that are just sitting.
he's got some good stuff that he needs to hunker down.
Yeah.
and just
I've been
wrap
telling
it.
him
just-
that. Yeah,
but
he's
I'm busy.
right there. He just needs to get that one
Yeah,
little push
yeah.
on it.
Yeah, but mixing other people's music,
Yeah.
mastering other people's music for the labels, for the artists, doing my record label, doing our stuff, and I don't. It's just the capacity, you
Yeah.
know, and then doing my work, my other work, you know. And
Yeah. Do you want to talk about your other work? Like I was going to ask you guys what
Sure.
you do besides, you know, I mean,
We don't need to get.
we don't need to get well, how about for fun though? Like outside is the music thing, is that the extent of most of your fun right now?
Well, we watch
longboard, right? We're
Yeah,
gonna do
longboarding.
some longboard.
Yeah,
And I need to get one to
absolutely.
keep up with you guys, though.
Yeah, we do love the electric longboard.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. Golfing. You know, golf.
golf.
I'm not a golfer either.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
like
obviously,
golfing.
I do the art.
Yeah.
and I do like the gaming thing a bit. I like the AAA games.
Okay.
I'm a fan of that. When I have time.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah, we actually play
Call of Duty, things
Call
like
of Duty
that.
together.
It's fun when you're playing with your buddies.
I know, that's what I
It
hear.
is, it is.
I've done it a couple times, and I'm terrible at video games. Like once it went past like the joystick and 2 buttons, maybe 3 buttons, I was like, fuck it, I don't know if it's a mental capacity or the dexterity or a little bit of both, but I don't have it.
Yeah.
I'd have to put some
I mean,
time
it's
in.
a shock when some of my realtor friends, they're like, AJ, you play video games? I'm like, well, when the nephew's around.
Yeah, when we have time. It's a good. There's an artistic element that's in that gaming too. When you see how their games are designed now,
They're beautiful, right?
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
the music
It's
and
crazy.
the artistic integrity that goes into those things is like people are doing like real architecture and
Yeah.
real paintings on the walls of some of these buildings, and it's incredible.
Yeah.
what they're doing, and the gaming systems now are so fast and reactionary, and you can really get your head in there, and like you're running around with a gun chasing down some guy. It's like telling your buddy, I'm coming around the corner right now, and he's like, he can hear you and respond, and there he is. It's like, and he's in the house 20 miles away.
Yeah. It's so
Technology's nuts.
It's nuts. And in fact, one of my really good buddies who I met through martial arts, but he's designed some world-class games. He's like an artist and runs a team. And I never had even seen into that world, that side
That's
of
a
it,
cool
right?
side
Like,
of it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's wild.
Speaking of the martial arts, we're both big fans of the UFC as well.
Oh, good.
It's true.
Well, I host UFC parties here sometime or whatever. I'll come to you guys if you guys are. We
Invite
love
us.
it.
Yeah.
man.
We'll definitely
Please.
come hang
Yes,
out.
Yeah.
please.
Love the
That'd be-
UFC. Big fans of
Me
the UFC.
too.
Yeah.
Me too. I love that violence. But no, you train and it's like
You train with Ivan?
no, but I know Ivan well. Yeah. I've been to his school before, but I haven't trained there. I'm gonna check it out. And I train locally here, but yeah, those guys are killers over at Ivan's school.
I bet, yeah.
No, it's a great school. Ivan's done a good job, man. He's made a good name for himself. I mean, considering like you remember Ivan from the clubs, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Shirt off, sweatpants, like
Yeah.
dancing on stage.
Oh, yeah.
He's a wild man.
Yeah, he was a groover.
Totally. No, as far as like, I was going to ask actually about performance. Like, is that is one of the goals, is ideally like taking hotkeys on the road and maybe doing, like, if you were to get booked for festivals or doing some kind of like,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're definitely making the music to stand out,
yeah,
to
Prepare for
hopefully
it, yeah.
catch some traction with some, musically. We're trying to make, music that, I think the conundrum that I've always had as a DJ is making music that was as good as the music I would DJ.
totally.
That's
Yeah.
the end goal. Is this as good as my favorite tracks that when I'm going to DJ?
Yep.
And I was always like right there. And finally, I feel like we're making music that could hold up to the music that we play.
Right, to the stuff that you shop and buy and,
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
put up. That's really cool to hear. Yeah. So for a path like that, from a production standpoint, is it getting some big name like festival DJ to actually play your track or to list your track as one of their top tracks of the month or whatever? Like, how
That's
does
always
that,
a nice bonus. Yeah.
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 And do you proactively go out and like send it? Do you send demos to? I always wondered about that. That's why I'm asking.
No, I don't think we.
We've been talking about
Yeah.
about that actually.
Okay.
We're having conversations about the distribution that he's got set up right now doesn't target exactly the and there's ways of going about it that
Right.
we have to look into.
Yeah, I know how to do it. It's just like getting it into the DJ's hands. It's it just takes time.
Yeah.
The capacity.
Yeah.
It's like, everyone, there's so many great producers out there that are still bedroom producers, and they don't get it. They don't get out there because all they're doing is creating, and they don't know how. They don't have enough time to, or they don't know how to do it, or they don't have enough time to push themselves out there in front of these other people. I think for us, it's like, hey, let's make a new song. Let's do this. Let's it's hard to get to. Yo, let's sit down and do some admin stuff and send some shit out.
That's not fun.
It's
right?
It's not as fun. Exactly.
That's work. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
Making art for the album artwork or something is fun. Video is fun, but doing the admin part on it. Yeah.
And neither of you guys like to do that.
No.
But that's why the music's so good, because neither of you guys like to do the admin stuff. You like to create it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get it. Are there upcoming? So I know you're gonna release summer. You're gonna do some release in the summer. Are there upcoming parties or anything you guys are playing right now that you have on the calendar?
Nothing on the calendar now.
You can come play with us at the beach. So
That'd be awesome.
Point. Yeah,
we'll put that on the calendar.
We'll longboard to the beach and we'll go play some. That's where it's at. We'll make Sangdo set it up.
I mean, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Electric skateboard or regular?
I'll get an electric one. If you guys got I don't want to be left behind. I don't want to be the dork kicking behind while you guys are just like cruising,
It's pretty fun.
I got a bum knee anyway, man. I think it's time for an electric skateboard because my wife doesn't think I buy enough stupid shit. That's all right.
It's our toys. Okay.
Exactly. No, that's I think, but that's where I was going. So you guys would like to go. I mean, obviously you can do your own DJ stuff. You can hold it down. You've been doing it for years, but going out and sort of DJing as like a unit would be pretty dope.
Yeah.
I think
that's kind of the direction we're going down. Just want to get the music out first.
Yeah.
Get a dozen or so tracks out. Then
That's
we'll
what I was going to ask.
work with.
So a dozen is kind of the goal.
Yeah, we'll have a catalog at that point.
Yeah. And are you guys shopping to other labels too, or you're just
we're shopping.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean we shopped the summer one, but we needed to get something out sooner. So
but you have your own label, right?
Exactly.
I mean, that's.
But with my label, we're stacked till the end of the year.
Oh, okay, because you got releases from other artists. So,
exactly.
So it's hard to slot your own.
Yeah, it is.
I see.
We're gonna shop the next few tracks, and we're just gonna go from there, basically.
Yeah.
Got it.
See how it plays out. The labels pick us up. If they don't, then we'll release it ourselves, and then maybe spend a little more on the distribution and try to get this music in front of the right people.
Yeah. Is it fair to say that you guys are, and I'm speaking just from my own bias, right? Because I'm taking what I'm doing now very serious, but I'm also like having way more fun than I was having with the DJ stuff and the music stuff and the Seattle House Mafia doing the show, right? Like I'm way more serious and like dialed in, but also like way less competitive. Have you guys I would say I can still feel some competitive sort of energy with you guys, just like what you're doing, but is it similar for you guys? Have you, as we've matured?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think we were way more. If you're getting that vibe now, imagine what it was 10 years ago when we weren't as mature.
I think our egos have settled down a little bit.
They've subdued.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
And the expectations aren't quite the same either. It's more like my expectations are set for the music versus what happens with the music.
Yeah.
I want the music to sound a certain way, and to basically check that box to where I would be willing to go and DJ this music,
Right.
And so,
I mean, that's a good litmus test, right? Would you play it, right?
Yeah.
Would you play it to a packed house? Would it go off, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, you make a good point with the ego. I think that's a big part. I mean, before we even turned the camera on, we were talking about Star Wars, and then we were talking about how we get this age and we just don't care anymore.
Yeah. Like, I think you're nerdy when you're all excited to start Star Wars.
Like, I didn't know you were a nerd.
We're all nerds.
It's like, yeah, that's us.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to think. Is there any? I know we talked a lot about the music and a lot about the releases and a little bit about your history. I want to make sure I'm not skipping over anything that's significant, like anything significant. You guys want to share any shout outs, any kind of collaborations or anything coming up? I just want to give you guys some space to let that out, because here's the thing before I'll go on a tangent here. I've noticed like some of the favorite things that I've seen recently in doing the show is like people kind of coming back around and just being fucking in it. Like, I love that. I love seeing people my age, myself included, like just getting back into it, but doing it in a fun way, a little less ego, a little less competitive sort of grunt, like still competitive, but not like anti somebody else. Like there's an abundance mentality about it. Right. I don't know. Is there anything I'm missing? Anything you guys want to speak to?
No, I think just us coming here and doing this with you is a perfect example of all of us being willing to kind of let our egos go,
Dude,
and sit in a room and be vulnerable for this amount of time, and it's being recorded. You know what I mean? That's like, it takes a bit of stepping back and being like, all right,
When here's the thing, you guys, I mean, whether you like it or not, like I don't think I've influenced you guys at all, but from even those rave days, like I was influenced when you were scratching. I was less mad about the needles and more mad that I didn't know how to fucking scratch and how you were going. And like, I obviously would come watch you play at parties. Like I've seen you on flyers forever. And it's so fun to talk to people 20 plus years later that actually influenced I mean, in a way you've influenced us. Like I said, Sherman talked about you, John Lee, like you've made a lot of people, you made DJing look cool. And so a lot of people wanted to do it. Right. And same with you, AJ, it's cool. I think it's pretty interesting how it kind of comes full circle, and here we are. And now you guys are making great music again. And that's pretty sick.
Again, in full circle again too, because we started out.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things we didn't really we didn't never really finish what we started with HeatSeekers.
Yeah.
And so Hotkeys is just a sort of a continuation of us picking up where we have now figured out the sound, whereas where before we were trying to find it and we weren't really landing on it.
Yeah.
And when you're not landing on it, you're making music, but you're not landing on that where you both know what you want. It eventually is even one of the things that could drive you into a different direction for a while.
Yeah.
And that in turn we remained friends and then ended up coming back and we both see the same vision this time.
Yeah.
And it's like we agree a lot more than we disagree.
Yeah.
And that's important in the studio when you're working with somebody.
Yeah. But having the space enough to disagree and then
and also
talk it out.
Not enough, letting your ego go a little bit to where you're like, okay, I'm not going to stand my ground on everything that I disagree with.
You don't need to die on that hill.
You're going to pick your battles and you're going to be a little bit more flexible with the sound, because at the end game, we both go, if we don't like something about a track that we're working on and the other person might like it, but I'll just be like, all right, it's out. We just move on, find something else. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Totally. And it's cool because it's not like we're never going to come up with something else. It's like, that was the only thing that was going to make us or break us.
Like, that's the one sound I wanted to build the song around.
No, then.
Well, and you guys are like creative motherfuckers. I think sometimes when people aren't creative, they think of that one idea and then to let it go is so hard. You
gotta let it go.
Like, there's
that's a very good point.
10, 20, 30 ideas behind it. You just like, get it out of the way.
Yep.
Let's go. So who is more of a pain in the ass to work with? If a third party were to watch you guys in the studio, who did you just side eye him? I
looked at the saxophone over there. I was like, so that's a nice saxophone. I was waiting for both of us to do this at the same time.
No, that's what I said. It was a total setup.
I know I'm a pain in the ass, but I try to make up for it. I try to be flexible.
Yeah.
I try to, but we're all alphas when it comes down to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't get the outcome that we're going for without both being,
a little disagreeable, persistent. I get it. And if you weren't, you don't want to be a pushover, right? Like, where's the influence if somebody's always running over somebody else? That ends up being toxic anyway. So I think it's good to butt heads a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, because as a mortgage broker, I put that first. Yeah. Because if I need to get something done, I got to put us on hold, and I feel bad, but at the same time, I got to help people, get their place.
Yeah.
So Josh would be looking at his phone, making noise while I'm on the phone with a client. I'm like, will you turn that damn thing off? Come on. He's like, oh, sorry. It was so funny.
We'll be working, and he'll get a call from work in the middle of working.
In the middle of us working.
So I'll try to sit back, wait for him. And occasionally I'll open the phone and the volume's on.
Of course.
I would say, oh, yeah, my phone just went off.
I've gotten better about turning it off ahead of time now, though.
Hey, it's how it goes, man. Like, I can barely keep control of the iPhone. You know what I mean?
Well, he used to do mortgages too.
You did?
Yeah, for a while.
Yeah. That's a right now business.
I'd rather keep this podcast about the music, though.
Okay.
That's fair. That's
so
fair.
he's
no, but it's what I find is a lot of this stuff is probably transferable to other things, right? Like for instance, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, but being a mortgage broker, you got to be organized. You got to be responsive.
Yes.
You got to look at angles, right? You got to be able to take a step back and sort of figure out the picture with some not so great variables and some really good variables. And I think it's probably the same thing when it comes to creating music or even playing out, right? Like played some I've played some gigs that were not that fun. And you just smile and do it.
Yep.
So
the show must go on.
That's right. That's right. But it is fun. It's fun to see folks our age or in our age group taking that business acumen and then applying it to the arts. Right. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Right. And I think people who haven't, if you've been, more power to you. If you've been an artist your whole life and never had that corporate gig, but I do think there is some value in being in that sort of confined corporate space and figuring your way out there, traversing there, and then bringing it back to the stuff you really love. I don't know. Could be wrong, but
no.
Yeah.
That you definitely, like, if you're having this organized, like how, like military fathers, like they're just so like anal about tuck in the sheets and do this and do that, like keeping an organization. But if they're living like that day in, day out, it plays out to everything else in life.
It doesn't just stay in that one silo and everything falls apart, right? Whether you like it or not, if a habit, if it's good or bad, it's going to influence other actions. So the last thing I was going to ask you, I was going to say, is there anything, because you guys are going to throw down a little bit, right? Throw down a mix. Anything you want to say about that, or are you just going to surprise us?
Yeah. Can
First 5 tracks are going to be ours.
Fuck yeah.
Yep.
That's what I was hoping. I didn't want to influence that, but I was really, really hoping you guys would play your original shit.
We're going to play 5 of our tracks and then some stuff that we both really like.
And then,
and some off Build It Records too, from the summer comp. And shout out to my A&R on Mall, and he's killing it right now. Somebody be playing one of his tracks too. So,
right on.
And we have a Seattle local, Alfonso Tan, that I'm gonna throw in the mix.
He was in here. Alfonso is so fucking cool.
He is.
He's like a super genuine nice guy. I really like Alfonso.
I'm gonna add him on there.
Hell yeah.
Cool.
Well, let's get to it. Fuck it. You can stand up. You can stand up behind the decks. God damn it.
Do some yoga while you're at it.
All right, that's a wrap. Thanks, boys.